transverse conservative women. Are periods essential to womanhood? Bro. Even the title made me laugh. Based off the title, it seems interesting. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this video, man.
Okay, so if I were a white person and I said I want to transition into a black person, and I'm redefining what blackness is to fit what I view it as, right? Would you consider that appropriation?
I consider that dodging, and I consider that comparing apples to oranges, because race and gender identity are two separate different things.
Wow, what an intro, bro. That was a fire intro, bro. I'm intrigued to watch this now. Oh, that got me fully excited, man.
Step forward if you agree. The transgender movement is indoctrinating our youth.
Yes, I would say yes.
We are seeing, especially on social media, on TikTok, you're seeing a lot of people in this community really just targeting children, and you're seeing drag shows, even in conservative states like Texas, and even just media, movies. Like, it seems like everything seems to be targeted at these kids. You have drag story hour for kids, and it's just really, I think, predatory in a way. And I'm not saying every trans person is doing this, but as a whole, there does seem to be a route that they're taking to get to the kids.
When you hear Blues Clues playing in the next room, and then you hear the Gay Parade song, it's Blues Clues. You're not expecting the
Is a Gay Parade song? Bro, I'm not fully into this movement and don't know much about it, but they even have a song, bro. That's funny, man.
to be talking to the children about that. It really makes you wonder, are they really coming for the children?
And I think we see
And just came to my mind. What kind of song would that be? I am gay and I'm proud. I don't know, man.
in our population now, the rate of young children who are identifying as transgender, non-binary is skyrocketing. And I think there's something to be said for people who are truly experiencing gender dysphoria, which we recognize exists, and those who are experiencing what is now going to be called, or in the future going to be called, this social contagion gender dysphoria, where they're being exposed to it on social media or in school, or mom and dad are having a conversation about it with children, and children are now starting to develop gender confusion.
Or even babies, right? People who are being born, they don't have to put the gender on the birth certificate, and they're saying you can choose whatever you want to be.
Bro, this whole movement is just laughable, bro. Like, you want to tell me that if a boy comes out of the womb of a woman, that it will not be a boy, but he can choose what he wants to.
Like, that's so dangerous. And even lying to them, saying like, oh, if we put you on hormone blockers at this age, it won't do anything to your puberty. It won't affect you long term. And it's just a straight up lie. And there's like an entire Reddit thread dedicated to people who've transitioned, talking about how much they hate their life now because they transitioned as a child and now they amputated off healthy body parts and are miserable.
All right. Can we disagree a step forward?
And it's obvious. I just want to tie into that. It's obvious. Like, if you give kids the choice to make choices based upon how they feel, it will have consequences. When I think back, as I was a child, I thought the things that I want to do are right. I thought that my choices are right, but at the end, they're not. Because I don't have the full knowledge as a kid to know the consequences. A kid just does things, man, because it's a kid, man. It's obvious. They don't think about what they will feel like in a few years, but it will be an aftermath. They will feel the consequences in a few years. Like if they cut off their genitals and all these different types of surgeries that help you to transition to the opposite gender, it will have consequences, and kids don't think about these consequences.
That the trans movement has got people shook has me so excited. The trans movement is not indoctrinating our youth. Our youth are understanding who they are at a younger age. And from what I was hearing over here is a lot of what y'all were saying, I wonder would you say it to the parents? Because we need to really look at what the parents of trans youth really go through. Trans youth, instead of them enjoying their life, playing with their friends, they're up in legislation trying to fight for basic rights here. 1 in 5 transgender youth have tried to commit suicide. Why are we trying to police
We wonder why.
them?
But you're bringing it only to the parents. The question was indoctrination in general. Am I correct? And then,
But they are part of that conversation. Someone said something about drag shows coming to schools or whatnot. The kids enjoyed it. The parents just had a problem with it. But that's their issue. It's only someone dressed in drag reading a story.
Is
That could have
drag
been
not
anybody.
black?
Bro, she said that drag queens, kids just have fun with it, and it's just, everything is just so innocent, right? Just roll the clip, bro, and just look at this. I mean, this does not look innocent to me. It's a grown-ass man dressed up as a drag queen with little to nothing on, and he's just jiggling around and dancing in front of all these young children, and they're innocent. They don't know what is going on, but he, as a grown man, knows what he's doing. And all these parents, what, bro? That's man. This whole movement is just, forget it, man.
Face for women. I see it as a caricature of womanhood.
But inherently
It's
sexual as
insulting.
well.
I have to agree with you guys. I do not like the drag queen social hours. I personally, as a trans person, didn't ever go to a drag show until I was about 40. I'm not for the sexualization of kids. Why are we not letting kids be kids and
Right.
bringing sex into their lives so early?
I think it's predatory in general to talk about sex with children.
Yeah.
Regard straight sex, any kind of sex.
Who's teaching sex to 3rd grade children? I really want to know.
Have you looked at the California curriculum for sex education? You need to.
I know that when I was in preschool, I got my first crush on a boy because to me at the time, he was in kindergarten, he looked like Prince Eric from
Little Mermaid.
Yeah, Little Mermaid. I don't think like fucking him ever crossed my mind when I was 4, but obviously like it would have been good to know that like it's okay like if you have these feelings for someone of the same sex.
We think of youth in general, they're having sex at a lot younger age, whether we like it or not. Let's just keep it 100% real.
You don't think it's because of that?
I do not think it's because of that. It starts at home with parents teaching their children. Because one or two things are gonna happen. Either you teach your children or the world is gonna teach your kids. That's the reality of it.
They are learning about it at younger ages from some adult or even their peers who learned about it from adults. That is in definition indoctrination. As a mother and seeing what my children are going to have to be introduced to at such a young age, like I didn't even know what a gay person was till I was like 12. And so they're gonna be
Me neither, bro.
having these really heavy adult conversations at a really young age just because of their exposure. And that is honestly just scary because I don't want to have those conversations. That's why I will be homeschooling my kids because I do believe—
That's a W, mother, bro. When I think about the future and thinking about having a family and kids, I would probably do the same thing. Because if the schools starting to introduce these topics to my children, bro, I ain't gonna expose them to that. Nah. I want to lead my children in the right path. Even sending them to public schools literally means sending them into a wrong path. So this will be the only option. It's crazy.
it is my responsibility to protect them and shield them from the outside world, which is targeting children.
The trans community and the trans movement is really shaking the course of what people think gender identity is supposed to be.
So in one sentence, you're saying that you guys are not responsible for the indoctrination that's currently happening with
Absolutely
children.
not.
And in the second sentence, you are saying we are shook by the fact that you are responsible for it.
No, you are shook at the fact that the trans movement has become what it is.
A movement that influences people all
powerful-
over the world, and particularly children. And we see it in the fact that the number of young people identifying as transgender, non-binary, gender fluid, genderqueer is skyrocketing, which means that children are being exposed to these ideas. And it's certainly coming from institutions like the media, like Hollywood, like our public institutions and schools. So to say that that is not happening, or to deny that that is the reality, negates the numbers that we're seeing.
What I would say is that the idea that there is a single transgender movement and ideology is disingenuous, and that at its core, being transgender is about separating sex from sex roles and gender roles that are compulsory.
Do you think that children should be able to transition medically?
No.
I think
No.
it just really depends on each individual.
Man, that's a G right there. Even though he's transgender, he understands what is right and what is wrong. I know he's still transgender, but he's on the verge to, I think, coming to his senses again. Exposing young kids to surgeries to suit their feelings is wrong, man. That's a crime. That's a crime.
Situation. They should be able to make the best medical decision for them.
Little kids should make the best decision for themselves. Are you mad? Sometimes I think, like, do people even listen to themselves? That just sounds so stupid.
I'm comfortable sharing bathrooms with the other side.
Ooh.
Yes, I feel comfortable. Safe, that might be a different question, but comfortable, yes, I feel comfortable.
What I think the bathroom issue opens up is an issue of predatory men taking advantage of the opening. That now they could walk into a women's bathroom or a women's locker room, as we've seen happen in instances like here in Los Angeles at We Spa. And they go into a women's space, they expose themselves to the women, and then they say, well, I'm a trans woman and you've opened up this space for me.
But we cannot blame trans people for that. And
Nobody's blaming you.
That's the problem right here. Because again, when you walk into the bathroom, I'm not interested in knowing what you are, what you identify as. I'm trying to use the bathroom and leave out of there. What people have tried to say is that when trans women go in the bathroom, they're being predatory, and that is not the case. That is something we do not blame on trans women. Although you were not.
But he can only speak for himself. I'm pretty sure that a lot of men would take advantage of that. Would just say, oh, I'm a transgender, maybe wear a wig, put on some makeup, and then arouse themselves in the bathroom, in a bathroom that's actually just ordained for women only. But now men can also enter that same bathroom and fulfill their desires sexually. It's just so wrong, man.
Not saying that. When we talk about predatory behavior and when we talk about like the predatory cases, none of them have been trans women. So I just want to make sure. I know she's not strictly doing that, but because she said that, I think it's very important that I bring that out on the table and discuss that.
We have to have the conversation, and now I'll open up the question. We know that if this legislation happens, if we move forward with this move, there are going to be men who take advantage of it. Now, I want to ask you, is your comfort as far as going to the bathroom more important than the female women that will be victimized by this?
Who said female women will be victimized by this?
They will, and they have.
No, you're only assuming.
It's only 9 minutes almost in this video. It's 40 minutes out, bro. I don't know if I'm gonna watch all of this, man.
But the reality of it is, again, when people are going into the restroom, when people are only going into the restroom, they're only focused on doing one or two things, and that's using the restroom.
Yeah.
But you didn't answer the question. Is your comfort more important than the female people who could be victimized by this?
Okay, so let me help her answer the question. Which one do you think I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me in? It wasn't the women's restroom. The issue that you're bringing up, first of all, is already violating a whole bunch of laws, okay? If somebody's exposing themselves in a bathroom, that's a whole different environment rather than just letting trans people in. In California, it's right now 100% legal for trans people to go use the bathroom of their choice. So I don't know what law you're talking about.
You're asking this question as if I would not stand up for cis women that were in the restroom, and that's not the case. Nice dodge there.
No
but
dodging.
The reality of it is, one thing I'm noticing is we're reducing a lot of these particular conversations to genitalia. And it's not about genitalia, it's about safety.
Yeah, her concern is the possibility of predation, and that's still a probability. It doesn't matter if trans people are using the restroom or not. Sure. But what you're concerned about is that you're possibly that people feel more emboldened to put on women's clothes and go in the bathroom. But they're still violating the law all over the place if that's the purpose that they're going in for.
Yeah, so I didn't step forward because, and I know in today's age this is going to sound very radical, and but I don't agree with the whole transgender ideology, and so for me it's encouraging something that is based in what I feel is delusion, and so I don't think that we should be encouraging that by allowing men into women's restrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if that's the case, that to some extent all gender is delusion. If we're looking at historically anywhere from, midwives after the enclosure of the commons in the 1400s, having their whole trade affected, or Brewsters having their trade affected, and now we don't think of women as, Brewsters, or that creating beer is a womanly thing. These all came from social conditions. These all came, a lot of gender, regardless of biological sex, it didn't naturally flow out of our genitals and it was we're this is how my genitals are, so this is how my gender is gonna be. That didn't happen. That's not life. A lot of people who are either transgender or who are LGBT in general, all my friends were girls. At first, I just remember there were a lot of things where I would kind of come up against people telling me that that's wrong, that whether it's something I like, something I want to do. It wasn't until kindergarten that someone told me that I'm a boy, and I was like, oh, I don't feel comfortable going to any bathroom in this world, in the current society we live in. And to make trans women the whipping girls of that, I think that's disingenuous, but I do think that we need a systemic change to make ourselves safer. I don't really know anyone who doesn't feel a little bit uncomfortable going to the bathroom.
And trans people are not a delusion. Let's make it very clear. We're here. We've been here for ages. We've been here since the beginning of time. We're in your history books. And I think it's very disingenuous to say that a whole identity is a delusion.
I believe that you feel like women.
It is. God created a man, God created a female. Period. No further questions asked. It's not like God made you a man and then you okay, I want to be a woman. God made me a woman. Nah. You're a man if you have a Wonka. You know that you're a woman if you don't have it. You have the other things. You feel me? Basic biology. Can we just stick with that?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there is an objective truth, and I don't believe in his truth, her truth, their truth, my truth. There is truth, and
who defined that truth?
And it's already defined. And I, as a Christian, I believe God is the one who set truth.
But who defined that?
Is the truth?
Can you tell me who defined that?
God, G-O-D, the creator of this universe, bro. What do you mean? Who defined that, bro?
God.
Living in the Bible Belt with religion taking center stage, it's hard for a lot of trans and non-binary folks like myself to really be able to express who they are. I had to really take on my gender dysphoria in private. I couldn't talk to my mom about it. I couldn't talk to my dad, my siblings.
Why? Because it's wrong. Simple. Because he knows it's wrong. That's why he couldn't open up.
Because ultimately I felt like it wasn't going to lead to anything because there wasn't a lot of education in the cis community like there is in the trans and non-binary community. We're talking about a book that was written by man with his own bias.
Who created chromosomes?
Yeah, I'm personally not religious and I believe in science.
When we talk about chromosomes, it goes back to the conversation we were talking about earlier about being intersex.
But we're not talking about intersex, we're talking about people who were born as a male and they tried to transition. The whole fact that they're trying to transition into a female in the first place shows that they aren't actually that, or else there would be no need to transition, right? So you say, okay, I feel like a woman. What is that? What does that feel like?
Yeah, how does that
And how do you know?
I'm not saying I feel like a woman. I am a woman.
So then why did you transition? Why can't you just present as a man but be a woman?
I transitioned so I could be who I was. I did not feel like I was the person that I identified with when I was born. So I took the steps to align my outside body with how I feel on the inside. What makes you stand up every day and make you identify as a woman? Let me challenge you on that.
I am a woman, and I don't like being called a cis woman because I'm not a cis woman. I'm a woman. I'm not a birthing person. I'm a mother.
So get mad at the terminology, not at trans people.
It's your new terminology.
But this is what I notice a lot of cis women do. The terminology has been around for so long. Cis is a prefix. Cis means same. Instead of getting mad at trans and non-binary people for using updated terminology, get mad at Webster. You're not going along with the times and being educated on the different pronouns and the different identities.
You have to admit, some of the pronouns are kind of ridiculous. I mean, to be, with all due respect, I'm sure you have to agree some of the pronouns that
I don't
people
think
use.
they're ridiculous. I think they're very expansive. Trans and non-binary people just want you to respect their chosen pronoun. We are not trying to force pronouns on you. Just understand that the terminology is going to continue to grow. If you're willing to educate yourself and understand, then you've got it.
The ability to give birth is a woman's greatest strength.
Ooh, okay. Come on now.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
Wait, all of them disagree?
I'm not able to have children, so I'm still strong. I'm funny. I'm physically strong. I'm smart, and I have a lot of strength. I don't believe that having a baby is the greatest strength because not all of us can. I cannot have kids due to medical issues from a medical procedure that I had when I was younger, and it's a hard subject to talk about. It doesn't mean I'm any less of a woman, but can we get another question? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
One of the things that I regret was the fact that I would never be able to do that, but I was honored in the ability to participate it from the other side. Women are amazing. They don't just deal with that, so.
While giving birth is not a woman's greatest strength, I do think that only biological women are capable of going through that process and bringing life into the world.
I need to push back on that because we're also forgetting that trans men and trans masculine people can also give birth as well. And I don't think it's fair to just set it on.
What is he saying? Did I hear that right?
Trans men and trans masculine people can also give birth as well. And
oh, Lord have mercy. Bro, this is a long video, man. Bro. He said that trans men, that means, my understanding, a man. Nah, wait. Trans men, isn't that transitioning from a woman to a man? In that instance, yeah, it will be possible to give birth because she's still a woman but claiming to be a man. But if he's saying a man transitioning to be a woman can give birth, that's wild, bro. That's wild. I think he high or something.
And I don't think it's fair to just set it on one group that says that just biological women have that power to just give birth. And we have to be very clear when we look at the nuances of birth.
I recognize that there are people who have different identities. There are biological women who identify as men and then go on to give birth. I would argue, however, that those people are still biological women. And I know that is something that can offend many, but that stands as my belief.
So the correct term is actually cisgendered woman. Cis means same. It means that you identify with the birth that you were assigned. And so, I just really, really wish that we would kind of be a little bit more mutable to the terminology, because I think that's what really is going to open up that dialogue and that discussion.
If I may, I think the crux of the conversation kind of comes back to, are trans women women? And I think if we don't agree there, it's going to be very difficult to kind of keep the conversation going or even agree on the points that you guys are talking about, because if we don't believe that trans women are women, then the conversation kind of ends there in terms of whether they're like men can give birth or not, if that makes sense.
I'm not sure that's the case. I feel like the ability to give birth is not like the end all be all of a woman's like meaning and life and herself and her personality. And I think that if you can acknowledge that, I would also then maybe challenge the idea that womanhood, as opposed to like a female sex, like womanhood is a consistent thing that has always been one way.
So how would you define womanhood?
You sound like Matt Walsh.
It's a good question.
Womanhood, to me, is about standing in integrity. It is about being confident in who you are. And me, as a Black trans woman, should not be a threat to you. And what I see from a lot of cisgender women is they're trying to deem what womanhood is supposed to look like. I have my own perspective of womanhood. We can coexist in the same world, but the reality is we get so stuck on parts. Having a vagina is not the only thing that makes you a woman. I'm sorry.
Well, what else? Having eyes makes you a woman? Tell me.
It takes integrity, it takes courage, it takes lifting other women up. It takes those things to begin to defy womanhood, and there's so many other different things.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, so if I were a white person and I said Blackness is about integrity and courage and kind of the same thing that you used to define womanhood, and then I said I want to transition into a Black person and I'm white. And I'm redefining what Blackness is to fit what I view it as, right? There's no objective reality of what Blackness is. Would you consider that appropriation, or do you think that's something I should be allowed to do?
I consider that dodging, and I consider that comparing apples to oranges, because race and gender identity are two separate different things. Because when we look at race, we have to look at many, many different structures of what whiteness and white supremacy looks like, and how white supremacy can be manipulated into other things. And what happens is the closer you are in proximity to whiteness, you're able to weaponize it against other people. It reminds me a lot.
Bro. It was just a simple question. If I claim being Black, or just say I'm white, and I say I'm Black, please identify me as a Black person. And I redefine Blackness. I'm literally white. I'm white as, let's just say I'm white as snow, right? And I'm saying this is the new Black. I'm Black, and this is the new Black. This is the same thing with transgenders, bro. Saying transgender women, which means they were men before transitioning, they say that they still are in that category of a woman. And she said that is comparing apples to oranges. Nah, that's spot on. Comparing apples to apples. It's the same concept. You cannot claim to be something which you are not. Simple. If you're a man, you're a man. You can dress up as a woman. That does not make you a woman.
A lot of Rachel Dolezal,
Man.
who, masqueraded as a Black woman. It really did open up many more doors of conversations around it, but it's still wrong. It's still not fair because she will still ultimately have a privilege that I, as a Black trans woman, would not begin to have.
What's interesting is that we're talking about race and gender, or as we probably like to call it on our side, sex. Race actually has a more understandable structure for people being transracial. Race does actually exist on a spectrum. I'm biracial. Many perceive me to be Black, even though I am also half white and half Black. We label people like President Obama as a Black president, even though he is as well. Race has never had binary markers. It does exist on a spectrum. Gender, however, does have binary markers. As much as we try, as much as we change the way that we self-present, chromosomes are not going to change, and that's just a reality.
All right, I'm going to bring up a little point here because you talked about the binary side of gender. Well, I was born a little of both. I believe I've never had my chromosomes checked, but since I fathered 2 children, I'm assuming I have the correct male chromosomes. So I was intersexed, and there's a lot of reasons that happens, none of which are well studied or understood, but a friend of mine in the pediatric trauma world says about 1 in 150 kids come out with some degree of ambiguity in their gender. For me, that appeared as always feeling out of place. And for the first week of my life, I was in the surgical wards at Naval Hospital in San Diego getting pieces of me cut off. And then they gave me testosterone for the first 11 years of my life. I wish the world were truly sexually binary. It would make it so much easier. But there is a little bit of a smear. And, as a trans person, I'm a very conservative trans person. I don't see the huge gender spectrum that a lot of people in the trans community do. Do I feel better having transitioned? Yes, absolutely. I used to live in a little shell, very large shell, but now I'm much more open about who I am. Is that the only thing that generally defines a woman? No, I don't think that is the only thing that generally defines a woman.
Right. I think there are a lot of women who may be on our side of the argument who will try to maybe invalidate your experiences by saying you can't give birth or you can't have a period. And while those things may be true, I'm sure there's a lot of other different struggles that you all are going through. And I would truly believe that you probably are highly discriminated against in our society, and it is hard to be you. It is hard to go through the things that you go through and have to deal with some of the responses that you get from people. And it's not a struggle that I would wish on myself at all.
Not a struggle I wish on my worst enemy.
Trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sports.
Ooh. Yo. I'm excited for this one.
I do think that trans women have every right to compete in women's sports. When trans women are on hormones, the hormones break their body down. Having gender-affirming surgery breaks down the body. And so I think we really need to be educated before we jump to a conclusion that trans women are stronger than cis women in sports. Hi, everybody.
I find it interesting that you assume the people who disagree with you are uneducated, and I will speak out against that. I think the research shows that trans women do happen to have a biological advantage against biological women. Even though you are taking hormones, and that does start to change your body and level things out, we're talking about primarily people who have transitioned post-puberty, which means they do have male bone density, male wingspan, male hand size, feet size, lung capacity, all of these things.
Just imagine if LeBron James would say he's a trans woman and would compete in WNBA. Bro, he would drop 200 points. He would drop Wilt's high score, man. He would drop 100 points, man, on a regular day-to-day, man.
are going against women, biological women, when trans women start to enter their spaces, their sports, and compete against them. And this is really concerning for me.
I think for me, it's not a question of whether or not trans women can compete in sports. It's a question of how can we change the institution of sports in this country to make it equitable and to create more opportunity for cis women, for trans women. And like that's kind of like why I wanted to actually ask you all, like, what has your relationship to sports been?
I don't think you have to have a direct relationship to sports to realize that women are being affected by this issue, and I do reject the idea of equity. There is no way to come about an equality of outcome, which is what equity is saying. There's a reason that women's sports are less funded and less watched than men's sports. It's because men seem to excel athletically, and they seem to press the bounds of athleticism way farther than women do. We now exist on a slippery slope. If it's female sports, is it then female locker rooms? Is it then female prisons, which we're now seeing becoming an issue here in California, where biological male inmates are being put in female facilities because they identify as women? We have to discuss as a society how much we give into the feelings of wanting everybody to be accepted and how much we are willing to do that at the expense of biological women.
I use myself as an example. This is about how big I was in junior high school and early high school. I used to be able to walk up to a V8 engine block, pick it up off the floor and set it on a table. And if I was in powerlifting or weightlifting, that amount of, that advantage was just unbelievable. I've been on hormones for 15 years. Did it weaken me? Absolutely. Did my bone density really hasn't changed, my muscular hasn't changed. And this is not a binary question. There's a lot of nuances involved.
I just want to ask a question for what you were saying. Can you throw out some statistics?
I don't think you need to have so there's an abundance of research. There's even trans activists who agree with exactly what I'm saying. And your hormones can change, right? And even she just spoke to the fact that her bone density did not change in going on hormones and changing these things. And we can see it in sports as we're watching them. Leah Thomas is a great example.
So if you can't throw out the statistics, we're not doing enough of the work. And let's also be clear, there are some cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone as well. And so we really have to unpack it from all different sides here.
Can you produce statistics about the bone density of biological men and how it changes
being
on hormones and whether or not it levels out to biological women?
I actually cannot, because when I would think of those statistics, I would think it was BS, to be quite honest with you, because the reality of it is we could talk about statistics and the research all day long, but it's about experience. We're gonna be looking more at the experience, because again, when we look at cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone and who have been kicked out of sports and been disqualified from teams based on something that they biologically cannot control, then what are we really talking about here?
Well, we're talking about, data and that is overwhelming, and we're talking about what is also we're capable of seeing with our human eyes. I think it's very clear that if you compare maybe you to the rest of us, there is going to be a strength difference. There's going to be a bone density difference.
But you're just saying.
Bro, I think I'm done with this video, man. Hey, but still, we watched almost 30 minutes of this 40-minute video. If you want to see the full video, go check it out, Jubilee, first link in the description. But I'm done, man. I'm done with it. This dude here, Lord have mercy. But yeah, guys, if you mess with this reaction, even though it was kind of hard to watch, probably, hey, still drop a like button. Do whatever you want, man. At this point, I just end this video, bro. See you in the next vid.